So my name is Rachel Branke. I am the head photographer. Oh my goodness, you guys would think it's a Monday. It's just Wednesday. But my name is Rachel Branke. I am the head lawyer and photographer and owner of TheLawTog, the go-to legal resource for photographers. And it's time for me to start getting back at doing more lives. I so appreciate you guys giving me the grace this summer and taking time, quote unquote, off. I didn't really take it off. I've been working with so many of you in your photography businesses on the legal side and just rolling out new stuff with the TheLawTog, but spent time with the family, and now I'm back to weekly lives. I want to orientate everyone, and we need to do a nice little audit. So let's consider this kind of like a back to school type of session for you. Do not click away. If you think, oh, I have all my contracts, I am good to go, think again, because I'm going to drop nuggets all throughout this. And so I want you to make sure that you are listening closely, auditing the toolkit that you have right now, because the entire goal of the TheLawTog is to bring you information because you don't know what you don't know. But more importantly, we want to prevent issues as opposed to be doing cleanup on aisle 4 later. That's going to cost you more time, money, and energy. And let's be real, when there's problems, the only people that end up winning are the attorneys. And I don't want that for each of y'all. If you're watching this live, pat yourself on the back. Kudos to you for taking some time. I'm not going to keep you too long. There will be a replay of this, but I'm going to be doing giveaways during the live, so you have to stick around to the end for that, and I promise I'll make it good for you, but there will be a replay. If you're watching this on the replay, please leave a comment of replay so that we can know. We're trying to gauge how best to provide this education for you all, and your feedback is what can help us do that. Okay, so as many of y'all know, as the TheLawTog, I absolutely love contracts and copyright information. This is the stuff that hits photographers most, right? We need contracts with our clients, with our vendors. We got all sorts of things going on. I'm going to give you a quick audit checklist here shortly to make sure you have the proper tools that you need. On the copyright side of things, we're not going to dig in that today. It's going to be in a future live, but we also have a free copyright guide on thelawtog.com. If you want to skip ahead after this video and go snag that, watch that video, and it's not live, but you can get some information. So let's just go ahead and dig right in here to get our contract audit list. I want you all to consider this like the client timeline. In fact, anytime you're going to sit down to write out what you guys say is a contract for your client, really we're referring to like the main contract, services contract, or booking contract. It's whatever you guys want to call it. It's the main one that most of us refer to. This is going to create the legal relationship, sets expectations, informs of obligations, and all the legal miscellany that you need to have. But that is just the ground floor. So I'm going to walk you guys through the timeline and think about it. It's the exact timeline of the way that your clients come in the door. So I strongly suggest that you sit down after this and make sure that you have your timeline of your workflow, because your services contract, that main photography contract that you have, is should is the key word, should mirror your workflow. I like to draft the services contract, so if you get it from the TheLawTog or you come to me through the law firm, I absolutely love to put it in chronological order because it makes the most sense to you and it's going to make most sense to the client, because not only is it going to walk them down the path legally of all the steps that are going to happen, but you're already introducing your client to your process. In fact, they're not even your client yet unless they have paid that initial non-refundable amount and have signed this main services photography contract. They're not your client. Don't put them on the calendar. So if you ever see me quip in the TheLawTog group on Facebook when people say, oh, I have an issue with a client, but I haven't signed a contract taking no money, they're not your client. They're a potential client. They're not there yet, all right? So they're not your client and you're not booked until you have a written contract and you have that initial non-refundable amount to put them on the calendar. Quick timeout here. I know there's some industry leaders who over the years and even recently have been saying, oh, you don't need to have a contract, just give good customer service, yada, 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 yada. I'm not going to go into all the reasons in this video why that's absolutely horrible information. And I don't just say that as a lawyer, I'm saying that as an entrepreneur and a creative who'd rather be focused on business and my clients and not on legal issues. So you can check last week's video. It's on my Instagram. And you guys, it's just in the IGTV. It's called Industry Leaders Are Lying to You. So check that out after this. I actually debunked two major things. That's just one of them that I highlight in that video. All right, so going back to where we are here, our first tier, the main core, these are what we call at TheLawTog our essential contract bundle, because this is really the essential kit that you need to have. It's that main contract that we've already outlined. We want to have our model release and our print release if you're selling digital files or allowing for reproductions even of physical prints, such as through scanning, etc. All right. This is for personal portraiture. These are going to be your tier 1 documents. Again, main contract creates the legal relationship and gets you booked with the client. It's going to mirror your workflow. It should be signed before any services or anything are done at all, before you even put them on the calendar. The second is going to be your model release. I always suggest breaking this out because you may have some people who want to waive model release, or if just some sort of situation happens, you end up canceling the original contract. You want it separated out for legal purposes so the model release could survive on its own. This is going to be the client giving you permission for use of their face in your promotional marketing. Now, there are exclusions to this, and I'm not getting into all the nuances of every document, but feel free to drop comments below, whether you're on the live or on the replay, and the team will try to help get you guys the direct link, or I can try to answer it if I see the comment here. So model release, and the third of that tier 1 is going to be your print release. Again, if you're selling digital files, this is going to be the personal print license. That's really the term that you should be using, but our industry calls it a print release. The photographer is going to outline the reproduction permissions for the digital files. This is assuming that you didn't sign away any copyrights in that initial main contract. At TheLawTog, and generally understood in the photography industry, for personal portraiture in these tier 1 documents with this main services contract, model release, and print release, the photographer relatively is going to retain the copyrights. Again, I'm not going to go too in depth in this. You really typically see copyright sold in kind of obscure situations for personal portraiture, like wedding portraits, newborn, boudoir, that sort of thing, or in commercial type photography, if you're like shooting for headshots, cover art, social media things, anything for use on product packaging, commercial related, which is why we have a completely separate bundle for commercial stuff. FYI, I am working on a commercial licensing course that walks you through all the copyright nuances, how to negotiate, how to price, and how to execute commercial licenses, because guess what, friends? Commercial photography blew up for many personal portrait photographers during pandemic. I've always been one to talk about cross-marketing. I do a lot of just commercial and marketing-based type photography now, but I will still offer to those existing commercial clients, cross-promote them into personal portraiture, which is where this tier 1 of the main contract, model release, and print release occur. Because think about it, in order, the very first step of our entire client timeline here is to get them booked. We want to get the model release, the main contract, all of that signed and off the table, take the initial monies that we need, and then we can move into more of the consultation and planning phases from there. You don't want to do all of this backwards, put all this time and effort into your client or potential client, right? They're not your client until they have that main services contract and non-refundable retainer or deposit. Not going to go into that in this video. We do have a link for that we can drop below. But you want that monies and this main services contract executed so that they can ask all questions, they being the client, that they need to ask before you guys get into this legal relationship. Then you're going to want to have the actual session, right? Walking them down the path. And by the way, if you didn't know, I'm not just an attorney, not just a photographer. I also have my MBA. I absolutely love business. So I just light up and get excited when it comes to marketing and also pairing anything legal or business with building up a buyer's confidence in our clients. In fact, I'm going to go on a little tangent here. So many times I hear photographers say, oh, I'm losing out on clients because of price. Oftentimes it's not price, friends. It's the lack of information. You're not making it easy, preempting questions of your clients, giving them all the information up front. The more of the important, pertinent information that they have without having to ask for it, the more their confidence increases. Same thing for like this whole outline that I'm telling you. If you start your contract to mirror your workflow from how to get booked all the way to the very end of whatever your workflow is with your client, there's a level of comfortability. This subconsciously increases the buyer's confidence. It makes it easier for the clients to feel better about you, to refer you, and overlook if something small happens, because let's be real, we're all human. All right, so tier one, quick recap, that's the main services contract, model release, and print release. Typically, the print release is going to be delivered with the digital file. So just to get booked, we need to get that services contract and the model release under control. This is phase one, tier one, the essentials. Then we want to move into the sales aspect. All right, you're looking at things like maybe taking payment plans, or they're adding on an album and need to do album design. Perhaps even within this, you're going to have, well, I'll come back to that in a bit. We kind of have a tier in between if you end up hiring someone to help you or outsource, but we'll talk about it here in a second. This is the sales tier of the client timeline. Payment plans are not something I necessarily would always put front and center. So what I mean by payment plan, and I'm not talking about like if a wedding where you have the initial non-refundable amount and then you have X amount of payments leading into the wedding. All of that's going to be managed or should be if drafted properly. And it's the way that we do it at TheLawTog, or I do it through my law firm. We put it all in that main services contract. When I'm referring to payment plan, this is if you, whether you're in-person sales, your digital sales, but after that main session has already been paid for and the client is adding on additional products, maybe services, but more than likely just products, and you maybe want to have an ace in the sleeve. Again, I love marketing. I love consumer psychology. Not necessarily want to throw payment plan out there at the first go just because it's such an administrative pain. You don't necessarily want to put another wrinkle in, and let's be real, who wants to get paid over time when you could essentially get paid up front? But I like having the option of offering payment plans in the back pocket for relatively large payment amounts so that you can save the sale if you need to. Why is this important? When it comes to payment plans, these, especially payments, anytime that payments are owed to you, they are a debt to you. Then, and really, if you want the actual legal term, we're looking at installment plans. So you can search that for your state, but these are typically heavily regulated state by state and even have a cap. So check your local state for this. They'll have a cap on the amount that you could charge for a late payment. You don't want to go above and beyond that. You don't want it to be so absurd, but you at least want to have some protection for you, because if you end up offering this payment plan, whether it was on first blush or you keep it as an ace in the sleeve, if there's a large sale, you've already predetermined what your minimum amount of a payment plan would be. Like I wouldn't go in there and say, they do a $150 add-on, do a payment plan, right? Maybe you could. I'm just, in my mind, I'm thinking thousands of dollars, like a big monkey of a sale, right? And the reason I call it a monkey, because that's what I visualize. When you think if you have payment plans, you're having to chase payments or installments, like you're having a monkey on your back until it's taken care of. You also want to be compensated as such if you have to pursue or enforce that agreement. So that payment plan or installment contract is going to create that payment terms for you. It's going to safeguard you when it comes to late or missed payments. So if you ever need to pursue. And in some states, depending on how you do the sales, there may be some sort of acknowledgement as to if, and check this for your state, if there's a cooling off period or not. Typically, I haven't found that any photographers are going to fall in that cooling off rule. We have an entire blog post about that, just because you're not a vacuum salesman. You're not just randomly showing up at someone's house being like, "Hey friend, let me take your picture." Choo, choo, choo. Okay, now buy them. That's really what cooling off laws are typically trying, and it could vary by state, but from my research, that's typically what cooling off type laws are trying to prevent. But you're not doing that. Typically, clients are going to reach out to you. You'll have some prior negotiations. You'll already have the session, obviously. So by the time it gets around into a sales type session, cooling off may not necessarily apply, but if it does, you might be able to provide some terms within a payment plan or in a final sale terms, which is the other document I wanted to address here. This would be, you could put this on the invoice. It can be language identifying that all sales are final, not just for this cooling off type stuff, if it applies and it's allowed in your state, but also to help prevent buyer's remorse. I mean, I'm sure many of you have been in a situation where a client has sat either on Zoom with you or in person with you. They end up telling everything they want, then they have to go ask their husband, or they go home and they all of a sudden they want to scale back and take off half of it, right? And I'm not saying that we have to use these contracts to hold our clients over the head. No, we're never going to beat our clients over the head, right? It's there as a legal protection and a structure. But so as long as you have the structure, you are able to provide the customer service, right? You're able to back it up. We set the bar. This is what it is, but you can always provide more customer service. So in like that situation, if they want to amend it, they could amend it. But what happens if somebody purchases, they give you a check, you cash the check, you place the order for the amazing wall art, spend the time designing the albums, and then they want to change their mind? Have the language of final sale terms either in the invoice or in like a final sale type document in this sales bundle, this sales tier that I'm talking about, is so that you can just remove any ambiguities right then. It really forces the client to decide, yes, I want this, no, I don't want this, and there won't be any uncomfortable conversations. Now, going down the timeline, we're then looking at having delivery of our products. We want to have at the very end, and this is probably one of the most overlooked documents, and we have it in the TheLawTog shop, is a product delivery acknowledgement. This is huge because we see this a lot, all right? We want to, when we deliver our products to our clients, we want to be done nicely, right? We want to be done. We want to have fulfilled all of our obligations, and we want to know that all loose ends are tied up. So with a product delivery acknowledgement, which is the final one in this sales tier, we want to have the client is accepting the final product delivery as it is. We don't want you to deliver a gorgeous, expensive album to their house. They say everything's fine, nothing's signed off on. You drive away, they call you the next day and say, oh, there's a huge dent in the album corner, when there wasn't before, and the client is demanding that you replace it at your detriment, at your cost. Well, if you already went through the process of having the client, and this is typical, this even happens at the dry cleaners. They have you look it over before you sign that you're accepting the product or your clothing as is. You are having the client inspect and ensure that they're going to accept all of the products, and it's going to help tie up the loose ends for you. So we've gone from services contract, model release, and print release, that was in our essentials bundle, into the sales tier of like payment plan, final sale terms, and delivery acknowledgement. So I have one last tier that I want to talk about before I leave you all for today. And this is if you are working with other individuals, whether you have an assistant on shoot or just in studio, maybe you have a virtual assistant doing stuff online for you, social media manager, second shooter, an editor, anything that has to do with any sort of creative works in your photography business, there's a variety of documents we need to talk about having in place. Now, depending on the state that you're in, especially if you're in California, here's a big asterisk here, we'll have to have a whole completely different conversation. You have to first decide, how are you going to classify these individuals? Are they going to be a pure W-2 or a 1099? You can do that by looking at the IRS test, but then also looking at your specific state should have an outline test for you. We also have a blog post we can link with this for you to check out, or it's on TheLawTog.com. Once you determine that, you want to go through the different documents. The most important thing besides services, identifying what services they're going to render for you, how you're going to pay them, when you're going to pay them, and all the legal miscellany, it's really no different than a main services contract you have with your client, except now you're the one receiving the services from this assistant or photo editor or second shooter. You want to have that main services between you and this other individual that you're working with or company for protection, and get that all cemented, the legal relationship created. But here is something that we need to pay attention to. And if you are a wedding photographer that has second shooters, if you are a photographer that is outsourcing your editing, this is so important. And this is our crossover for copyright. By default, if you have a contractor working for you, any creative works that they create, okay, 1099, not W-2 employee. And keep in mind, you can't just arbitrarily say, I'm going to pay you like a 1099, but treat you like a W-2. It doesn't work that way. This is why we want to have that main services contract to outline and make sure we treat them under the test properly. By default, in the United States, any contractor that creates creative works, so they second shoot for you, if they turn around and edit your photos, if they're creating social media content for you, your client guide, they retain the copyrights in those works. What does this mean? Primary wedding photographer. You, unless you have some sort of in writing, which is what I'm getting at, and we want to make sure we have all intellectual property assigned over to the primary photographer here, which would be you. If you don't have that signed over, that second shooter in this example retains all the rights. That second shooter could stop you from selling them, stop you from using in your promotion, and you can't edit them. Now, we'll get into, there's a little exceptions with that. But, so, let's take for another example. Let's say you're a photographer who's boudoir or newborn and you're outsourcing your editing. Perhaps you're the one that photographed, okay? You're outsourcing the editing, but you're passing along the editing to a contractor who's a photo editor. You guys might have a situation without anything in your services contract, without any sort of intellectual property acknowledgement, which, by the way, we make standard in our contractor and employee bundles at TheLawTog, is that you could have a situation of a co-authorship of copyright between you and the photo editor. Don't want that. Okay, we want you as the primary photographer whose name's on the line, whose name is in that services contract with the client. We want you to obtain all the copyrights for all those works. Now, if you want to turn around and license them or sell them, wonderful. Like, you could sell the copyright, that's you. But I'm talking about when you're hiring people to work in your business with you, W-2 or 1099. In fact, even with the W-2, should just by default transfer to you as the company. That intellectual property should. I still say get it in writing. Always get it in writing. And then a couple other quick things with that. We want anybody that's working with us to sign like a non-solicitation. You don't want your second shooter soliciting your clients on the day of the wedding or anytime thereafter. Non-competition might come into play for W-2 employee status, but then also confidentiality, because these people are going to become privy to some proprietary or private information you have in your business. And we want it, the only way to really safeguard all these sorts of different things, transferring over the IP, confidentiality, not having your clients poached out from under you or sold to by like a second shooter, a photo editor, or whoever. Get the documents in writing. And I cannot express to you how many people, especially wedding photographers, just have second shooters show up, they just pay them, they snag the cards, and they think all is good. Well, all is good until it's not good. You never have an issue until you have an issue. So in this like employment or outsourcing type tier, make sure you have the main services contract there, intellectual property acknowledgement, confidentiality, non-solicitation, and maybe a non-compete. Now, of course, we have all this at TheLawTog that's instant download, but if you guys are like, I want to go to someone local, feel free to jump onto TheLawTog.com, take a look at our descriptions, use the descriptions as a bullet point to take over to a local attorney to draft for you, or you can simply snag ours and your local attorney can do just a quick if they need to make sure that it's in compliance with your state laws. Now, of course, one of the big questions is, what if you are not a full-time photographer? At any time that you're putting yourself out like a business and you are taking monies, whether you're profiting or not, you have potential liability. All these different things that we just talked about is not just a legal protection, but all of these documents set expectations, help to reduce miscommunications, and help to prevent issues. So you definitely want to have the contracts in place as soon as you can. Now, as far as when should you have an LLC, I always tell people, I get it. When you get into business, you may not have a lot of money to reinvest, but having like an LLC, limited liability company, or a corporation structure, depending on your situation, is one of those that you should really quickly get taken care of and make a plan to invest in to help limit your liability. In fact, I have another video called the legal triad of protection, and the main liability protection tools are LLC or corporation, so your business entity. Notice I did not say sole proprietor at all. You'll probably never ever hear me recommend that. Contracts, and then liability insurance in there as well. Those are the three that can really help you out. Think of them like hurdles between you and your client, just because things happen and we want to try to protect ourselves as much as possible. Now, that's not to say you can't walk up and punch the groom in the face and try to hide behind your LLC. That's not going to work. But I mean, like, if there are little things that happen along the way that all of a sudden your client's like, ah, you want to try to protect yourself as much as possible. Now, just a recap, back on the essentials tier, it was main services contract, model release, and print release. I always recommend not rolling all of these documents up together. Each serves their own specific purpose, especially with the services contract and model release. Administratively, it's just easier to keep them separate, especially since you consider oftentimes the person booking the contract or booking the session is maybe doing like a family or for a couple. They may not even they cannot sign that model release for someone else unless they have like a guardianship situation or a power of attorney, and that's few and far between. Like, the only people that I could sign for would be my kids. I couldn't sign for my husband on the model release form. So that's administratively having it broken out for that purpose, as well as considering if somebody wants to waive the model release, like there's a confidentiality type situation needed, foster care, they work a sensitive type job, like in my area, we have like FBI, CIA, they can't do a lot of online presence or at all. Easier just to waive it and not even have to worry about sending the model release. Plus legal reasons, if one gets invalidated or canceled, you don't want to inadvertently cancel the entire thing. You still want to keep everything else remaining intact. So yeah, that was a lot of information. I completely understand if you're a little overwhelmed. I do have this in a physical graph format at thelawtog.com/start here. Had to check it. Start here, or it's linked at the top of the TheLawTog. You can save that graphic. Keep it and save it and use it as like your audit list to make sure you have all the things that you need. I really strongly suggest that you go through and have this stuff ready. I didn't even go into things like cancellation of contract document, which is more of like a reactive, or the third-party payer. Like, let's say you have someone that is paying for the couple's wedding photography, but they're not one of the couple, one of the people of the couple. So I would just keep that in mind, that there are other things that we didn't talk about here. Didn't want to completely overwhelmed. But yes, one last thing on that model release, you want to have all adults sign for themselves, and then adults can obviously sign for minor children that they have the authority to sign for, because the property right that they are giving permission to is specific to the person, right? So my property right of publicity is to me, my husband's is to his, and absent any sort of other agreement or guardianship type situation, I can't sign for him. Now, what is the likelihood of this becoming an issue? Well, you just don't know until it is, right? It's often the way that these things come around, and you just don't know. Just like with model releases, not all model releases are the same. And in fact, again, I'm not a big fan of the term, but that's what our industry uses. And most model releases just give the permission, and that's kind of what I've highlighted so far. But I take it a next step, because I'm always trying to anticipate the things that I would do if I had to pursue. Like, I always put on the bad hat, right? I put on the client attorney hat, and say, how would I pursue a photographer? Because I'm trying to prevent you guys from having those problems. And one of the things that also include, like in a model release, which we have in the TheLawTog ones, is that the client's not going to receive any compensation for the use of that property right, that of their face, that publicity right of theirs in your marketing. So let's say that you submit it to the photograph with their face to what's it called, like Portrait Master, Sue Bryce's thing. You win an award or PPA or something like that, and you win a monetary award, and the client, savvy, and again, you guys think I'm crazy, oh, that will never happen. Well, check how many times in the TheLawTog Facebook group it always starts, never thought it would happen to me, or I've never heard this before. It can happen. We just want to protect it, and it hurts nothing to have a one-liner in your model release that is a client waiving the compensation claims for anything of use of their face in marketing, but you just don't want them coming out of the woodwork with something. And typically that's in there for like true models, like TFP type situations, trade for pictures and that kind of stuff, but we just want to be safe. We just want to make sure that we're trying to prevent as many issues as we can as possible. All right, so I think that is about everything. Again, this was the client timeline with a little quick audit. Go to thelawtog.com/start here for the graphic of this. And then don't forget to watch last week's if you didn't see. It was industry leaders are lying to you and talking about how so many leaders who are not lawyers, by the way, will tell you don't need contracts. Well, as you've seen a little bit through this video, they're more than just legal protection tools. They set expectations. You can provide customer service. Check that out. We also do have completely forgot what I was about to say because I just started thinking about the giveaway. Yeah, all these documents are available on the TheLawTog. We also have a free contract available and the free copyright guide. We will be coming, meaning me, will be coming to do the copyright information some more in the future. But since all of you have stuck with me, if you could just leave a comment below and let me know what is something new or something that was reinforced to you from this live, go ahead and comment it below. I'm going to select someone for a random $200 credit to the TheLawTog shop so you can utilize it either on contracts. We also have our legal course. I have a marketing course in there as well. You can also save it if you want to keep it for the commercial licensing course. What I'll do is, just leave the comment, something that you've learned, or maybe you're like, oh my God, all of it, all of it. I didn't know. I'm really wanting to have this feedback to make education better for all of you. So while y'all do that, just quick heads up, if you are not in the TheLawTog group on Facebook, make sure you come and join us. We are starting to do some fun giveaways. We're going to be doing some more education. So oftentimes I'll go live in there more than I will out on public social. So make sure you check that out. We also have our email list. You can get signed up one of three ways. It's on the front of the TheLawTog. Free contract, copyright guide, free business checklist. So if you're trying to figure out how to legally set up a photography business, that will walk you through it right there. All three ways are to get on the email list, and because we don't require text. It has a thing in there. You can put your phone number if you want to get text notifications. We do not spam that, I promise. We really try to reserve it for promotions. So if you are someone that's like, oh my goodness, I really need to save some money, sign up for the list. I bet you there might be a code somewhere, but also you'll be able to get email notification. And I'm definitely harping on this just to give you guys some time to comment below so I can pick a giveaway winner, but also because as we wrap up the end of the year, my God, I can't believe we only have 4 months left. We are going to be having my big birthday will be coming. Then it's Black Friday. Then it's first of the year. And we just do big blowout fun stuff. And we have new stuff coming up that we have not done in past years. And I hope that you guys will join me. All right. So Oksana, can you PM me when we get off of here, your email address, and I will shoot. And I just randomly scrolled and selected someone. So Oksana, if you could just do that for me and we can coordinate, the team will get your credit over to you. Again, thank you guys for joining me today. Please feel free to leave any comments on this and let me know other things that you would like to see in the future. And I hope you guys have a good one.